very invest.
Speaking of economics,
Sure.
part of why I love the topic and part of the reason why I'll even read or try and understand it is, firstly, I'm kind of followed by what energizes me, and like I'll pick up a book, and if it's boring, I'll put it down. But I'm reading, and thus far I love it, but I'm only 100 pages in, and usually like 200 is when I stop reading because I get bored. I got ADD. But I'm reading George Reisman's Capitalism. I don't know if you've ever read that one. But I recommend it. He's a really brilliant writer, and his logic definitely flows with mine. But what gets me really excited about capitalism, what kind of even brought me into this space is just like, I don't know, Why Nations Fail was a really interesting book. And I'm very interested in like, how do we create the most good? How do we create the most wealth? And that's really what economics is about, is how do we have structures in place that actually allows everybody to get ahead? How do we have the most good? How do we create wealth? How do we let people specialize? How do we have a system where everybody can freely interact that everyone benefits from? And when you start just like reading about the principles and how they operate, and like you can almost pick up like these kernels of truth, like sometimes I find them to just be like fascinating, where I get excited by the ideas. Like I read an idea last night in Reisman's book, which I'll share because it just got me like excited. I was like, holy shit, that makes perfect sense. He has a whole chapter about environmentalism, which is a fascinating read. You can go read it in your words. The one paragraph where I found really interesting was he basically explains how over time, like our ability to basically, the more nature we consume, as we consume nature, we also create wealth. It's like a direct relationship, right? As we burn fossil fuels, for example, to move cars, the economy is going to grow and we build more and more wealth. As a direct relationship of earning more and more wealth and having economic development, we're going to have more of an understanding about how to use the elements on Earth. So like the way that you actually get off of, for instance, oil is you just invest in economic growth where the economy expands to a point that there's so much wealth that scientists just figure out how to use the next resource. So they have to figure out how to use 1 gallon of oil for your car to go 50 miles. Like the Earth is here. It's like, it's us against the Earth.
And it's not going anywhere.
Well, that's true too, but there's infinite elements and we're figuring out how to use them. That's what scientists are doing. They're figuring out how can we take this shit and use it to our benefit. And the more we engage in that process, the more wealth we develop, right? And the more we actually figure out how to use it to our benefit. So to look at like us consuming Earth and going, hey, we better stop that. It's going to get to an end. Like, no, that's the opposite of economics and wealth development. Wealth development is the more we use it, right? The more we figure out how to use it, the better we get at using it. It's not like a finite thing where it's like, we're going to, all of a sudden there's going to be like a tiny little crust of the Earth because we used it all. Like, that's not the way it works.
Right.
You understand what I'm saying? Like,
it's like water and everything else. It's not a scarce resource. It's everywhere. And it's
right.
Like just getting it to the right place and having it, potable is our biggest concern. You're exactly right. Nature is a force multiplier that was a gift to everybody. And so, man, to be able to harvest it, to use it, to make energy out of it, all of these things, it gives you so much in return. I mean, especially when you're looking at from an Austrian side of things, that's a savings. Like it's not a debt. You've got all these savings everywhere. I mean, around you, under you, everywhere. And it's like, all right, how are you going to take that and make a better life for yourself, for your family, for your community? How are you going to put this into trade so that you can sustain life and maybe even help others sustain life at the end?
So like, I hear that shit, it gets me excited. So that's why I love economics.